Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our December webinar Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. It's cold here in Fargo, kind of snow is blowing around, so I don't know how it is out there for y'all, but it's kind of bad here yesterday, so I guess welcome to winter. Anyway, I'm really excited about our webinar Wednesday we have today. We have Carrie Helgo up in Pembina County. And then we also have Kelly Parker, my colleague here in the state 4-H office, 4-H specialist. And they are going to be talking to you today about the 4-H Communication Arts Contest, how to set that up in your county, judge consistently, and get your youth ready for that. And so this is a really exciting topic. I'm glad that we're doing this today. And also, if you think of any topics that you want to learn about, just shoot me a message and we can add that to Webinar Wednesday. I don't have exact dates, but I do know that our plant science committee on our program planning team for 4-H wants to offer some trainings for their contests coming up in the spring, and they've talked to me probably doing them in February or March or so. So look for dates for that. We haven't set those yet, but some plant science contests for 4-H Webinar Wednesdays will be coming up. So I'm going to turn it over to Carrie and Kelly to get started. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks, Megan. So I'll go on and share our screens here. So we have a little PowerPoint for you to help walk you through how to host the Communication Arts Contest. So just so that you guys have an overview of what we're going to go through, we're going to have a bit of an introduction to what communication arts actually looks like. We'll talk about the different divisions and categories. We'll go over our rule book, which is BA 800, which has basically all of the information that we're going to share with you today, except for that how to host document that's later on. And then we'll talk about what it looks like when it's your turn to host. So if you're hosting a county contest or a district contest, that how to host document that we'll talk about in that is super helpful for that. So we'll talk about managing the overwhelm that kind of comes with that, because planning an event can be a little scary. And then we'll talk about some things that are new in ComArts, and then how you can train your judges for consistency and what it looks like when you start advancing your students to state. So to give you a quick overview about what communication arts is, we really want to focus on skill development. So communication arts is actually a project area inside of 4-H, but then what we're talking about today is mostly the communication arts contest. So the skills that they build at this contest, the whole art of communicating, is the basis of all of our skills. Life, career, leadership, everything comes back to being able, sorry, apparently my dog is trying to communicate. Everything comes back to being able to communicate clearly and effectively, and hopefully without a dog barking in the background. I'm very sorry. So we're going to talk about gathering and organizing information and building public speaking and presentation skills. So Carrie, do you want to take it for a couple of seconds, and I'll go see if I can get the dog relocated.
Sure, certainly. So Kelly brings up a good point as we start to go through this, though. Nothing is perfect when we're doing public speaking. And so no matter how much you prepare and put the perfect like room set up, and you've got signs on the door and hosts that are monitoring people coming and going, there's always something that kind of can throw off the event. So know that that's just part of it. And that can happen. When we talk about the state fair, it's loud out there. No matter which way you are, no matter what room we're in, there's always some sort of a distraction. Again, that's just a part of life and public speaking and what goes through. So you can always work that into part of the contest as well. So when we're talking about the divisions and categories, though, that are in ComArts, there are quite a few different ones that are there. The Cloverbud level from ages 5 to 7. These ones you can participate at the club level and do a demonstration or a public speaking piece within your club setting. There's also the county level if you have a county contest that happens in your area that they can participate in. And Cloverbuds are also invited to come along and participate at our district level. Cloverbuds then move into those ages of 8 to 12. The only difference that changes there, for the most part, is that we add the state. They are then eligible to participate at that state level. They do have to at this point in time, take first place at the district level in order to be able to continue on to state. And so then the seniors are the same as above, except for the seniors have one more added carrot that's in front of them. There is a national contest that falls under communication arts, and that falls in prepared and impromptu speech. And North Dakota does send on delegates to that. Kelly, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that senior delegate and the funding, kind of the sources that go with that.
Absolutely. So the 4-H Foundation does provide a $500 scholarship to students who request that scholarship towards the national contest. So that is not, it doesn't cover the entirety of the contest just because it's very expensive to actually get there. But that is held at the National 4-H Roundup in Colorado every January. So that falls in under that category. So seniors can actually be 19 years of age when they participate in that category. They just have to make sure they haven't taken any college credit courses in communications when they go to that contest, because that would disqualify them. But that is their final year of eligibility. So there's just a tiny bit of wiggle room on the upper end of that. And we actually ran into that circumstance this year where one of our delegates had turned 19, but they're still eligible because their 4-H age was still in that 18 age range, and it counted for the previous year. So that's kind of what those different divisions look like. But then we also have some categories. So for the Clover Buds, the two traditional categories that people will use are the 4-H Pledge or the Pledge of Allegiance. And so Clover Buds, those are the two most common things that Clover Buds will present, but they can also do any other category. So that's entirely up to you all as county agents, to their club leaders, and to the Clover Buds themselves. The Clover Buds don't receive award of excellence or participation, or they receive a Clover Bud ribbon for participating, but they don't receive award of excellence or first place ribbons because of those areas, because we want to get them that spark, that exposure to experiencing communication arts and helping them to get comfortable talking in front of people. But then our juniors and seniors, it really expands out. So Clover Buds are also allowed to participate in these categories. It's just not as commonly done. And the two categories that are only individual presentations are prepared speech and impromptu speech. So those prepared speeches, the biggest difference for prepared speech and impromptu speech between junior and senior level, and really for all of these divisions, is the actual length of time that they're presenting. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the BA 800 section. But for the prepared speech in advance, they do some sort of a speech about 4-H, how it's contributed to their lives, or about a topic that's important to them. So what we like to encourage people to do is, if you were on the webinar yesterday talking about expanding your 4-H project areas or program areas, they could do a speech that is talking about horses if they're doing a horse project. And they can use that speech both for the horse project, because there is a horse speech competition. They can also use that same speech in communication arts. They just have to make sure that they're adjusting it a little bit to fit within the time limits.
Mm-hmm. And Kelly, I also want to point out too, you will have your seniors that do those type of things. If they're participating in the speech contest for their school, they can use some of their speeches, but again, they have to look at the rules that follow 4-H, because 4-H does not follow state high school speech necessarily. So we'll get to those as we talk, but it can be done, but it might have to be modified a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's a really great time to have that conversation with, especially with those senior participants who may already be participating in those competitions, or even with something like FCCLA or FFA. They have that opportunity then to modify those speeches and use them here as well. Then we have the electronic category. That is a very broad category. So students can make a video or a website. They may be demonstrating some sort of a software. So all of those categories fall under that same heading, and typically they're judged against one another. But what isn't judged against one another is the individual competition and the team competition. So individuals are judged only against other individuals. Teams are judged only against other teams. So that's something that's important to keep in mind whenever you're hosting a competition. So if you have one individual and one team, each of those will be a first place winner in that district contest, even though it may not, you may have found that one was substantially better than another, for example. And that goes for these other categories as well. So you'll see here that next to team, I have a number listed or a range. So in general, teams are composed of 2 people. The one exception to that is dramatic presentations, where you can have up to 4 people included in that list. So as people are looking at those groups, sometimes you'll have a group of friends who wants to present together, and maybe they have an extra person So we want to encourage them, we want to allow them to participate. If you choose to send them to districts, they can compete, but they can't be sent on to state at that level. So just keep that in mind whenever you have teams come in. So they'll need to pick 4 people for that dramatic presentation if they're going to do that, or they're going to have to forfeit their opportunity to go to state. In a similar vein, if you have different age groups, you can potentially have a team where you have a junior and a senior individual together. This is Senator Sassy. Apologies, I'm getting lots of Zoom bombs today. This is why I work upstairs in my office instead of down here. So if you have a junior and a senior working together, they can participate. They would be classified under the senior category, but they are not eligible to go to state. So that is in the BA 800 rule guide. Carrie, do you want us to talk just a little bit about what each of these categories are?
I get really quick on some of those. When we look at the prepared speech Kelly's gone over, the impromptu speech, there is actually for agents. You do have some prompts that you can use to have the kids draw from so that they can come up on those. Those are actually found in the Google Drive under the agents. So if you kind of go into there, your families cannot find those, and you can bring those and go with different options for those, and then the state ones will be different. So you don't have to worry about sharing something that might be used at state for that impromptu. The electronic with the video, the web, and the sophomore or the software, remember that there's always an introduction that happens with these. And so if you have a youth that maybe doesn't want to do a lot of talking, they'd want to know, like, and we'll talk about that in that BA 800. So you kind of always refer them to that guideline and make sure that they have access to it. But they'll give that introduction and they'll talk about some of the things why they did, why they chose, some of the different things they had. And then if they need references, that also needs to be in there. And then they can play for you what they've done, which means when you start hearing that, knowing, okay, I'm setting this up, I'm going to have access to a computer, I'm going to have access to some sort of projector so you can share those with the audience and the judge. Demonstrations and illustrated talks can be very similar in one vein. Demonstrations actually show you how to do things and walk it through step by step, showing, so like if you're making a pie, for instance, you're showing some of those actions and doing it. Illustrated talk is very similar in the vein where you have the pieces there. You're just not showing the step-by-steps. One of my favorite ones was a violin that a gal had brought in, and she showed the different parts of the violin, the different ways that you would use it, the things that you needed to learn without actually playing it. So it's a lot less hands-on, and because sometimes that can be a little hard especially for the youngers to try to remember to do something. The illustrated talk, you're just explaining it, but you're also using posters. And I know this feels very sometimes outdated, but again, we have to learn to express ourselves in a lot of different ways and get our communication across. So demonstrations and illustrated talk also use the poster board still. They don't necessarily rely on the electronic pieces that a lot of our kids are used to, but it's like, how do you set it up so that you can get that kind of information across in that written format is also to highlight what you're talking about. Interpretive reading is a very popular one, especially for the younger ones to do because they don't have to have a lot of extra creativity and prep. They can choose a reading of their choice if it's within that time frame, and you can edit down so that it fits within the time frame the way you want. You're not using the actual book in front of them. You always want to encourage them to type out their readings and to put them onto cardstock with something that's like a plain color behind it so that they can just like move it from back to front. And in there, they can make their notes on when they should pause and when they should accentuate different voices or doing things. Interpretive reading is different from our dramatic readings or our dramatic presentations. There's very little movement. Okay, it's a little bit of body movement when it comes to your hands, but it is not full body movement, and it's certainly not taking a lot of steps. Change in voice is basically what we're looking for to be able to interpretive read through that. The mass media involves broadcast and commercials, so it kind of does a radio broadcast, and it can be any kind of broadcast with that. The piece that I love about this one is that there is a board, if you're doing a radio broadcast, that you can put in front. We're talking like a trifold board. So those kids that don't like to be seen in front of an audience can actually have something behind it. They will be doing an introduction of some sorts. They might stand in front of that from the very beginning. And it's a pretty short period of time that they're back there, but you can use all kinds of creativity. You can bring in sounds from phones, sounds from other things. You can do different characters. And of course, this is also one of these categories, like all the others, that you can do in a team. You can do a broadcast for a TV, and then you wouldn't need the booth in front of you, or you can do a commercial. And the commercial, yes, is granted, is longer in time than a regular commercial that we would find either on television or on radio. But the reason for that is we want those kids to explore and have some time actually presenting what they're doing. So they get to be a little creative in how they put their commercial together. The dramatic presentation is kind of almost like a little mini play. They can create their own pieces, or they can use an existing piece, and you can work with others. And you can be in costume for both this and your commercial, are the two that allow that to be outside of 4-H dress. The dramatic presentation allows for all kinds of movement. So if you have somebody in those school speeches that are a lot of movement to them, they do a lot of up and down, back and forth, or they want to pace, this is the space that you want to add this into them so that they can do that. Can use notes if you want, as long as it doesn't take away. And then the last one we have is Fish Tank. And Fish Tank is one of those pieces where it's like an entrepreneurial piece there where they've designed a product or a prototype, and they have a piece that they want to market. So there's it's a business plan almost, and they have a lot of different pieces that they're doing with this and how they want to sell it. So if there's a job that they have or a piece that they've developed and they want to start to sell, what are all the different proponents that go in? And there's a wonderful rubric that follows for the Fish Tank as it comes through. So it's kind of like Shark Tank, where they're actually selling their ideas and some of those pieces they have behind them. Whew, that's a lot, Kelly, in a very short period of time.
It is, and it's so much information. So I really appreciate that you highlighted where uniforms are required. So basically everything other than commercial and dramatic presentations requires 4-H dress code. And then everything else, everything besides those two requires 4-H dress code. So commercials and dramatic, they have costumes, and that's part of their evaluation.
The other thing that I want to point out to this, when Kelly talks about teams, you can do up to 2 events at any contest. You can register for 2. One is an individual and one is a team. They cannot be under the same category, though. And the reason that we did that is so that they try different things. We're always pushing them to look outside their comfort zone and to do that. So keep that in mind as well.
So we already mentioned a couple of these rules. So just like we just said, all participants except dramatic and commercial categories are required to wear either a 4-H t-shirt or the chevron. So they're expected to follow 4-H dress code. There are some counties that have more stringent requirements on what that 4-H dress code looks like, but the only ones that are stated in our state guidebook are that 4-H t-shirt or chevron. They are not required to wear khakis. They're not required to wear any other particular type of trousers or anything like that. But they do have to have that 4-H emblem on them. As Carrie mentioned, participants can enter up to 2 categories. So we do encourage them to do a team and an individual if they're doing that, but they do need to be in separate categories. They can't do a team and an individual in the same thing. So they can't do a demonstration for both, for example. Each one of those categories has limits on the number of participants for each presentation if people are doing a team. So like I mentioned earlier, that list of all of the different categories, the limit is 2 people per team, except for dramatic, which can have up to 4 people on a team. So just keep that in mind when you go through there when you're looking at team presentations. And then the big difference between juniors and seniors is the time limit. So juniors can be 2 minutes long as the minimum, 10 minutes is the maximum. So we'll, bust out our shepherd's crook and pull them off the stage, so to speak. If they go over that 10 minutes, that's generally not an issue. And then seniors, it's 4 minutes to 10 minutes. And that's for pretty well all of the presentations. Some more firearms, mostly that you would hope would be common sense, but occasionally we get questions on. They are not allowed to have any kind of guns, firearms, anything that could be considered a weapon or a functional weapon. So no functional bows, no shooting equipment. Those are not permitted for any category, any event at any level. So the only exception is a non-functional weapon would be like a bow stave. So that's just like the upright of the bow. So it doesn't have a string on it. They can bring that for a demonstration or an illustrated talk. They can bring a non-functional arrow, so no tip on it. So they can bring those kinds of things for that. Another thing is they have to follow copyright law. So they aren't allowed to use copyrighted works, nothing in its entirety, especially for prepared speech. That's one of the big ones that we run into that issue for. But also, if we're looking at our dramatic presentations or things like that, they do need to make sure that they give credit to the authors if they are using one of those works. So that's important. And then if they're using any kind of a religious reading or a topic, they must remain neutral. So they aren't allowed to proselytize the audience just because we want to be sensitive to folks of whatever religious background that might be coming to our presentations. So we do not follow the rules of high school speech and debate. And a lot of that is because we're dealing with individuals of all ages. So anything that students present or 4-Hers present should be suitable for an audience of people age 5 all the way up to 85. So make sure that it is just being aware of who that audience is. It's a little bit different. And then, like I mentioned earlier, our team members should be in the same age division. If they aren't, if you have a junior and a senior, they'll compete in the senior division, but they are not eligible to go on to state.
Hey, Kelly, Crystal had a question. Crystal, you said found the old ones. Are you talking about the BA 800 book?
Yes.
Okay.
So BA 800 was revised in February of 2025. And we actually, I will pause sharing for just a second and I'll pop in the link in the chat here. So let me find my document that has all that on here because we have the updated copy.
And I will say, you guys, especially for any of the contests, all of these are being put into that Google Drive. What we have in our offices sometimes don't get gone through quite as fast. So always go onto the Google Drive for any of the contests that you're looking at to find the most updated publication that deals with those and look for that date, no matter which way it is. So if it's within, like 3 to 5 years, but those are super, super smart questions asking yourself as you're going because they do get tweaked. And there is no rhyme or reason as to the timing that they get tweaked. Mostly it's because we're looking at a lot of different feedback, like that we've had from different contests and people are coming in.
Right. The other time that we make big changes to any of the guidelines are if there are significant changes at the national level. So if things come down from National 4-H Council or Western Roundup, and that's, again, predominantly in regards to prepared and impromptu speech for that senior category, we'll go back and we'll make changes there, but we want to go on and also change it for juniors so that it's consistent and they're getting used to that idea of presenting so that then when they come up into the senior category, they're prepared to go on to nationals if they get that opportunity. Again, more rules. They're more like guidelines anyway, but no, they really are rules. Team presentations do require significant participation from all of the team members. So if you have a team of 4 and only 3 people talk, that's not great for that team. It doesn't reflect well on them. So they need to make sure that everyone in that team is participating in the category. So again, dramatic is the only one where you'll have a team of 4. So just make sure that if you have a team that's working in that category, make sure parts are equitably distributed. Then the only events that we do any kind of placing are the events that go to nationals, and that's only at the state level. So all of the other contests receive participation ribbons, honorable mention, or award of excellence. Right now, we have it set up so that at district levels, they are receiving a first place medal, and until those run out, they'll receive that at districts instead of an award of excellence. Whenever we get those medals given away though, and we're down to ready to move on, we'll start doing this award of excellence to make sure we're in compliance with that BA 800 book. So we will still give participation and honorable mention. And related to that, honorable mention should be given only to people who are in consideration for first place or for that award of excellence typically. So they're participants that went above and beyond what you were expecting of them. And then every participant should receive feedback at the end of their presentation from the judges. So when you're training your judges, you want to make sure that they're taking notes during the presentations. And then immediately after that student is done with their presentation, the student should go to them, get that immediate feedback from the judges. Again, you want to make it as constructive as possible. because we want this to be a good experience for the kiddos so that they know what they did well and maybe an area where they could improve. Put it in the compliment sandwich as much as possible. Make sure those students get that positive feedback as well.
And so, and Kelly, just so, because I know that things are different sometimes when you're doing a county event compared to when you had state last year, did your judges then talk to each individual before they left the room? Did they have the opportunity to do that? Because sometimes it's a timing thing, you know what I mean? So as we say it, we just kind of want to be consistent.
Yes. So ideally, they should have had somebody talk to them before they left that room. And this is a psychological thing too. So when students get that immediate feedback and then they have time to reflect on it, it's actually more impactful than if they have time to ruminate on it, then get the feedback, and then come, it makes it so that they're actually able to get that information. So a little bit, oh, sorry, go ahead, Carrie.
I was just going to say, and so they do get two types of feedback. The judges are also trying to write on the evaluation sheets and put notes down, but things are clipping along. We all know how that goes. Nobody wants to be, these can run for almost close to, depending on your numbers, an hour to two, and it takes the judge a long time depending on how they're going. So that we're hoping to give them two types of evaluation and feedback that they can listen to and go. But we also know what youth are like. They hear something and they're looking like deer in the headlights as they're going because they're coming off that adrenaline rush of being in front of somebody for the first time and having to do that presentation. So keep that in mind. And then I would highly, highly encourage you guys, if you have never volunteered to judge for communication arts, to put yourself in that space. We're always looking for judges, but it also is nice to understand the contest from that point of view as well.
Yeah. And related to what Carrie just said, this also is a psychological construct. So once they get that verbal feedback and then they also get it in a written form later at the end of the day, and they're not required to take that written feedback, but that actually helps them to take that feedback to heart and apply it, because then they're not as overwhelmed from being in the heat of the moment, and they have the time to then go back and look at it if they choose. So just to recap BA 800, it is our rule book, our Bible, so to speak, of our communication arts contest. So please make sure you read it before you host an event. Share it with your judges, ideally at least a week in advance of the contest so that they can read it too. I realize our judges are all super busy as well, so they might not actually have a chance to read it. So then when you do the judges training, try to hit the high points of it as you go through.
And don't forget to share it with your families as well. This is not a secret. These rubrics and these evaluations are there for them to prepare for this contest, for the way that particular category is being judged. That is not a secret. If they're planning on doing it and you know that they're registered, those evaluations should go out to your youth and your participants ahead of time.
Yes, we want to make sure that we set our youth up for success. So how do we do that? When it's your turn to host, how do you manage all of that overwhelm and find your way through this? So some things that are best practices are, first, contact the other agents in your district for support. I know a lot of you have new agents, some of you are new agents, and some of you have never hosted the contest before. So contact those other agents, get their support, and then try to coordinate a date that everyone is available so that we can get as much participation in those contests as possible and the support of those other agents. Because again, those other agents are going to help you to judge and help you to run that contest. So set that date based on when everybody's available. Try to pick a location that's somewhat close to centrally located for your area. Sometimes that's not feasible, and we do try to have different districts rotate who's hosting. Some districts will have it at the same location and just a different agent is the host for each one. Sometimes they would change locations every year. It's up to you as a district to decide what you want to do, but there are some things that you want to keep in mind when you're picking that location. You want to make sure you have at least 3 competition rooms, depending on how many participants you have coming to your contest. And each one of those rooms should be able to hold at least 20 people. And that's because these kiddos, a lot of times they're bringing their parents, their siblings, and so you need room for the judges and these kiddos' families to be in there too. And then each room should have a table for the judges and then a minimum of 3 adult-sized chairs. You want to have 2 judges and a room host in each room. So you want a table for the judges to sit and write notes on, 2 adult-sized chairs for the judges to sit on and hopefully be somewhat comfortable, and a chair by the door for the room host. Now, ideally, you should also have, chairs for all of the people who are going to come and watch, because standing for that long is very uncomfortable. So if you can fit 20 chairs in there beside, that is fabulous. But we also know that sometimes that's not feasible. Sometimes we're working in elementary schools and the chairs are for little kiddos. If that's what you've got, we're grateful for it. We'll make it work. But if you've got adult-sized chairs, that would be much appreciated, especially as we have grandparents who like to come and watch their grandkids participate too. So that's super helpful for them to have.
And
It's
then Kelly,
also,
sorry,
oh,
Kelly,
go ahead.
before we go on, I also want to go back to your date because you do kind of have there is a point in the calendar where you want these held though, correct?
Yes. And so I think we'll talk about that here in a second, but
Okay,
by the
perfect.
end of May, you need to have all of your district contests held, which means your club and county contests need to be held well in advance of that. And that's because June 1st is the deadline for EYC registrations. So why does EYC registration have anything to do with communication arts? Well, historically, communication arts winners from the senior category have been awarded a scholarship when funding allowed in order to send those students to the Extension Youth Conference. So we now have an endowment that we are going to be hopefully getting some more funds in through that to help fund those scholarships on a yearly basis. This year, it's relatively small. That's part of one of the new things in ComArts. We are adding a $10 participation charge per student, a maximum of $20 per family. That'll come up here in a second. But that's also to, in the interim, help support those scholarships and also to pay for the prizes that we give to students. So those medals are $8 a piece. The ribbons are about $3 a piece. And since we give one to every student, that gets to be very pricey very quickly. And we do not have a budget to support those awards right now. So we also are looking for sponsors. I would very much prefer to have sponsorships over charging a participation fee to our students. And I'll also add, when we get here, it is up to the agent. So we have this how to host document. I am going to share a different screen here. Okay. Can everybody see the how to host document district communication arts event information on here? Fabulous. Okay, so we have some new things that we've
Can you make it just a little bit larger?
Yes, absolutely. So we have some new things that we've added in here to this event. We highlighted some of this new information in yellow, and we have a few things that we're needing to add some notes about still. So those are coming up soon. So I just want to point out this note. We do have a requirement that is listed in the BA 800. So participants need to present their participation. If you're not having a club or a county contest, they really should be presenting to you as their county agent before they go to districts. And that's just to set them up for success at the district level. If they have not presented to you, it's really not fair to them because they are presenting against other kiddos who've maybe presented 2 or 3 times already. And so we want to make sure that we're preparing them as well as we can. So please make sure that you are having your kiddos present to you. You can do that on Zoom if you want. If you can't get them coming to your office for difficulties with scheduling or something, that's fine. We just need to make sure that they have that opportunity to present. Also, they have to have district competitions before sending students to state. We can't have students go come straight to state without having had that district competition. Again, it's not setting them up for success. All of this information, or almost all of it, is also applicable to county events. All of the evaluation forms are hyperlinked here in this score sheets. So that is directly to the Google Drive. It includes all of those score sheets for the different categories. So that is all there. It is ready for you to use, print it off, do whatever you need to do with it. And then back in this document, we also have information here. So this is the information about the $10 fee to participants. That'll cover the cost of the medals and the ribbons. It'll also provide funding for EYC scholarships to help offset the cost of that. And then in order to make sure we're collecting that consistently, ask those contacts in your district to register using 4-H Online. We pay a lot of money for this at the state level every year. You guys are able to set up events. If you have questions about that, you can contact me. You can contact Tyler Johnson, our admin assistant, or our program assistant, who is amazing at getting things taken care of in 4-H Online. And then make sure that all of those participants return those completed forms to you by a date that meets your deadline for arrangements in those communication arts events. So we're asking you to send those documents to us a week in advance of your contest. And that's because we need to make sure we have enough awards at the state level. And if we run out, we have to order those, and it takes a little while to get them in. So make sure we send those to us. And then we just need the total number of participants in each category. So if you have a category with nobody in it, we don't need any information on that. We just need to say if you have, say, 4 team demonstrations, 3 individual demonstrations, 5 illustrated talks, 4 dramatic presentations with a team of 4 or a team of 3. We need those kinds of numbers so that we can actually count out the number of ribbons and send them to you guys in advance so that we can send those with a state specialist. So we're going to try and again this year and send a specialist from the Center for 4-H, or I guess we're officially now the 4-H Youth Development Office, to attend your district office or attend your district event and to help out with judging the orientation or any other roles that you need support in. So we'll send you that box. It'll include the medals, the ribbons, all of those things. And then if we have sponsors for ComArts, this year so far, we don't have any sponsors for Communication Arts. But if we do get those, we will send you a list of those as well. And we'll send you that list in advance as soon as we have those sponsors, so that you can include that on your pamphlet or your agenda that you give to families. We'll also send out letters for the first place participants in the senior division, and that will give them information about the Extension Youth Conference and registering for that. And then you need to make sure you're ready to give the judges an orientation. So there is a whole host of information on here. There is a checklist that we're working here. So there's lots of information that you can have and share. So I will pause sharing on that for a moment and reshare the PowerPoint slides.
Hey, as Kelly's bringing that up, and there's a question in the chat too that we'll get to you here in a second, Erin. But before I forget, also when you're doing this seems to be a lot, and it feels like a lot. But if but work together for those agents that are in your district. So if you're hosting, assign out duties. So like if you have 2 or 3 other agents that are going to be there that day, have one do the orientation with the judges and share this document with them. Have another one maybe working the registration table, another one helping you set up. So, or helping present awards. So you're not worn out by the time that you're done from point A to point B. You might be the host, but you can delegate. Okay.
Yeah. Also, strong recommendation related to that. If you are planning this event, bring snacks for yourself. You will get hangry. If you're anything like me, I know at the end of the state day, I was ready to bite somebody's head off because I had gone like 9 hours without eating anything. And that's not a good look for anybody. So make sure you eat something.
So Kelly, Erin wanted to know, is it okay if they present at a club meeting, or does it need to be presented in front of an agent if they don't have a county contest before going on to districts?
Absolutely. So they can present at a club meeting. We just want to set them up for success. So presenting to their club is absolutely fine. We just want to make sure that they have that experience in advance.
Yeah. And a little bit of feedback, Erin, would be good. You know what I mean? So if that's happening at those clubs, make sure that they're taking a look at, like get that evaluation piece in front of them. They don't have to fill it out, but there should be things so that the kids, or so that the club themselves is aware of, what does this look like? Like these are some of those things. And then what's the good feedback that they can give back? What's an improvement that they can maybe make so that they know?
Absolutely. So then what's new in ComArts for this year? So like we already mentioned, there is that $10 participation charge. This is only at districts. You are not required to charge anything at your club or county levels. We're not going to charge anything at state. We know families are already strapped when they're coming to the state fair between paying for rooming, getting in the door, all of those things. But we're also setting a $20 per family maximum, because we also know we have a lot of large families in 4-H that if we ask them to pay $10 a kid and they've got 5 kids, that gets to be a lot really fast. So we're saying a $20 per family maximum. And then if you know a family is financially struggling, that is at your discretion. You can waive that fee. Reach out to me. I will get you a code that you can enter so that waives that fee, or I can actually show you how to set that code up yourself in 4-H Online. And so that can be waived by the county agent with the district host in agreement. Again, no charge at state. Sorry, did I just hear another question?
Yep. Lynette is asking if their district finds sponsors, can participation fee be waived?
I'm good with that. Absolutely. If you guys find sponsors to support it, that would be great. You just need to make sure that works out to be about $10 per student that comes in here. And that's because that money does go to support the purchase of those awards and the scholarships to EYC.
Tori is also asking if there's an option for 4-H councils to pay for the fee for each of their counties. And I would say, like as long as absolutely, if they're willing to pay that
Yeah.
up and to go forward.
Absolutely. We're also going to have an informal Q&A on January 9th. That's a Friday via Zoom, and that's going to be from 12 to 1. So that is just if you have additional questions that come up, you'll have that opportunity. If you scan the QR code, it'll take you to the Zoom link for that. And then thank you for pointing out to me that the BA 800 is the 2024 version. I will double check that. I used the first link that came up, so that was an old version. So I'll get you the new one. It isn't a huge change, but it is a small one.
Kelly,
Yes.
in the Google Drive, the correct one is listed under contests, communication arts, but if you go in the state fair under communication arts, that's the one that needs to be replaced with the new one.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. So we'll get that updated for you. And then how are we actually going to encourage consistency across the state? How are we going to train our judges? So some things that you need to make sure you do so that our judges are consistent. And this is because this has been an ongoing issue. I understand that for several years, there's been feedback at the state level that students were told one thing at their club or their county or their district level and then told something completely different at the state level. So make sure that all of your judges have access to that BA 800 document at least a week in advance. That's so that they know what the rules are. And then ask them to come to the contest at least half an hour before the contest starts so that they can be trained. So ideally, you would run registration and the judges training at the same time if staffing allows that. So if you have support from your fellow agents, that will help out with a lot of that information. And so you want to review those rules that we listed earlier with the judges at training. A note on interpretive readings, we've gotten lots of questions about this. So they are not allowed to do full body movement. Their feet have to stay planted, but they can use their hands. So hand gestures are allowed. They can gesture. They just can't be moving around. And this isn't even a basketball pivot foot thing. This is both feet should be planted. We do recognize students can be nervous though. And so if they need to shift their weight a little bit and rock, that's fine. We just need to make sure they're not walking from end to end of the stage. That's reserved for a dramatic presentation and not for interpretive reading. And then advancing students to state. After the district contest, we're asking you guys to send a list of all of your first place winners from the district contest. Eventually, that's going to become the Award of Excellence, like I mentioned earlier, to the state office. So you can send it to Jamie Steffes, you can send it to myself, you can send it to our 4-H account. Any of those will get it. Those counties then will advance students by entering them in fair entry. Diane's going to be hosting how-to webinars soon, I believe. Is that right, Diane?
Yeah, they'll start usually the first part of March, maybe end of February. Just on that note, and it doesn't hurt to cover it again, when you register your participants for the state contest for ComArts in fair entry, if you have a team, you will enter both of those individuals in that category, and then you will just specify in special instructions team and then list the name of the other team member and do that for both team members.
Absolutely. And then when you're sending that to the state office, this also gives us a place to double check. So make sure you include the student's first and last name, the age division, the category, and the title of their entry. And we'll double check those so that we can make sure we don't run into hiccups when they go and advance to state, so that Diane and I can coordinate, make sure that what's in fair entry and what I've got on my form when we print out those programs, that they're correct and that we have everybody included and that things are spelled correctly. So it gives us an extra chance to, an extra point to make sure we don't miss something.
And in addition to that, just want to remind everybody, you don't have to send any physical copies of anything anymore to the state office. It's all done in fair entry.
Yes. All right. So it is question time. So let us know how we can support you. And then we also have, again, this room for questions. So this link, we'll send these slides to Megan as well after this, so that you guys have this Zoom link if you want it. But we'll pause now. I'll stop sharing so that you guys can ask any extra questions that you guys have thought of.
And one other thing that I want to point out, Kelly, on that BA 800, it has the instructions and it has the instructions for and the rules, but also how to kind of do each one of those categories. It also has the evaluations in them, but we've also added on in the back appendix so that you can find them all in one space. There's different um, basically kind of help guides. There's the 4-H demonstrator, so that'll give you some more tips and tricks on putting together and pulling together a demonstration. There's the making your interpretive readings come alive. So that's kind of like basically kind of a front and back couple, to give you some tips and tricks on doing that. And then the fish tank also has one so that it's all in one space for you guys to be able to share that out with your families.
So what questions do you all have? How can we support you?
I have a question, Kelly. It's come up in a couple different conversations at the county and the state level, but what are we doing with AI? Do you
So
have any advice? Yeah.
That's a great question. So AI generated content is typically not permissible for the communication arts contest. However, just because that is not clearly stated in the rules as written so far, the standard is that they need to indicate or to announce or share at some way that the content they are sharing was created using AI. Yeah, great question. I also see something from Erin in the chat, making sure that there's a table ready for the individual speaking as well. So that's great. And that is listed on the hosting a district contest. So you do need to have a table for demonstrations because they need somewhere to put their things. Some of them also like a poster board. So having an easel is very helpful for that. So there's a list of supplies as well as things like a lot of people will bring an extension cord. If you're having electronic presentations, you do need to have a computer as well as some sort of a projector screen or a television that has HDMI hookups to connect that computer to. And then students should be bringing their presentations for those electronic presentations on a jump drive. So all of those things are helpful to keep in mind.
It's also nice. Oh, I was going to say, it's also nice too. Sometimes everything should be on the jump drive, but sometimes they have embedded pieces in there that does require an internet. So if you have that option, think just to problem solve, just in case it comes up, think ahead to that.
Absolutely.
Kelly, sounds like we need to make a note in our setup requests for the state fair to make sure that we do have a table for that. Just remind me when it comes time to do that. Thank you. Thanks, Erin, for bringing that up.
Yep. And I think it was in the setup instructions as well for that one and just got overlooked when we had a last minute change of rooms. Yep. Great point. Other questions?
So with districts, they now have to use the 4-H online to register for districts?
Just to cover the costs, yes.
Okay, so then they're going to be asked for a credit card or something through 4-H online to pay for that?
Unless you want to accept checks at the event and then send them to the 4-H office, yes.
So if we get sponsors, how can they waive that fee? Just they'll put that they're doing a check or something?
So you would write a coupon code for that when you develop your event.
Okay.
Yep. Great question.
Going off of that, who is then responsible for setting up those events in 4-H Online?
So the district host typically would be responsible for setting that up. Great question.
And how are you going to convey that to all of them? Because I don't believe anyone hosting our district is on this call.
So I have been sending out emails to the district hosts that are listed on my document.
Sounds good.
Yep. Other questions?
I have a question just in regards to EYC. You mentioned that you're working on getting sponsors for that kind of scholarship. In the past, there have been opportunities that if you got first, it was kind of like an automatic ticket. Last year it was like a drawing. If you got first, you got going into a drawing. Registration for EYC is due this month, right?
No, it's due June 1st, but the
early bird.
Yes,
Right.
the early
Yeah.
bird is due the end of December. Yep.
Could
So
could it,
if students register for EYC and then they get a ComArt scholarship, we will refund them that amount.
okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering.
Yep, absolutely. Great question. Edison, yes, if we don't have sponsors, there will be fees being added to other contests as well. I'll also note there are already fees associated with participating in shooting sports with a lot of the animal science contests. Most of those are already there for exactly this reason, to cover the awards that are given if they don't have sponsors already listed. So yes, fees are already being charged. So this is just bringing it into alignment with the other departments or other areas.
And one of the things, like we are pounding the pavement for the sponsors. Some of the things that have happened, our biggest sponsors have, what they're turning to is they really want to do support local. And they want to make sure that they are supporting their 4-H youth that are in their counties where their services are at. So it's rather than the bigger, broader piece on some of these, like in our instance, the communication arts contest. So, finding some of those different avenues and finding some of those things. So if you have any corporations or pieces that you think would align, please send them to Kelly so that we can start to send out some of those, make those asks too as well.
Absolutely. And tied into that, I do want to let you all make you aware, if you aren't already, we do have an endowment for the Communication Arts EYC scholarships that was donated this year. However, it hasn't spun off enough income from interest yet in order to actually support those scholarships. So we're trying to give it a bit of a rest this year. So we have, I believe, 4 or 5 scholarships that will be covered based off of the interest that's been generated, but it's not going to be enough to cover a scholarship for every district right now. And so that's one of the reasons we're implementing this fee. So we're making sure that the awards costs are covered as well as supporting those EYC scholarships. Great questions. Anything else for the good of the order?
Any more questions for Kelly or Carrie?
Howdy. I might have something. Just brainstorming about the sponsorship. So far, I think I've heard 2 potential options. One is the money, the sponsorship goes to the county council, and then each county's council, or however that sponsorship works, gets to cover that fee for whenever 4-H online registration happens. Then, the council will cover the fee essentially. Um, is there an avenue where it's something where we get a sponsorship and it can get paid directly to the state? Because I'm just thinking about the logistics where, let's say that Mountrail County gets a sponsorship, then figuring out, okay, well, how's that going to be divided across the other counties too? That's one. I'm just kind of brainstorming in terms of what we can do to mitigate that.
Yeah, so to make it easier, you absolutely, if you have a county specific sponsorship, you can have them send those funds directly to the state office and have that applied to that county. That is feasible.
Okay. I think it'll just be probably like a thing we develop. As
Absolutely.
we get closer to the contest date. So yeah.
I would also encourage all of you, please be in communication with your district host, because your district host is going to be your point person for all of this and helping coordinate it. So they can set up in that event coupon codes for each county. So then it would be like enter coupon code Mountrail for this example, and that would get that discount for any Mountrail county participants.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any more questions out there or comments? Okay, well, Carrie and Kelly will stay on a little bit longer, but I just on the back end, I just want to remind everybody that we'll have another webinar Wednesday coming up in either February or March with the Plant Science Committee, educating everybody about some of their contests coming up. And so stay tuned for those dates. And I will be sending this out to the recording to everybody on the county listserv, and also we'll send it to the volunteers that we have. We also send an email to volunteers through 4-H Online so they can look at this. But also I encourage you all to share this with your coaches, parents, and volunteers as well, so they can see this presentation and the new things that will be coming for 2026. And I want to thank Carrie and Kelly so much for joining us today for our webinar Wednesday. Thank you.